Welcome to the Scoop World Order early Saturday edition. There's a lot of good football on tonight. SEC Championship, Big Ten Championship. I know a lot of you folks are going to want to watch it, so we figured we'd knock the show out nice and early today. This is presented by Twin Peaks. If you guys enjoy UFC, it's a great place to watch the fight, along with Buffalo Wild Wings, two incredible partners that actually host all the UFC fights, which is amazing. So if you guys are out and about tonight, go to our partners. Twin Peaks and Buffalo Wild Wings are excellent partners, and we appreciate them so much. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate all that you guys do. Happy Saturday. Again, I think it's beneficial for Ohio State to not be playing today. I think that if Kirby Smart or Steve Sarkisian or Dan Lanning had the option to not play today, they would not. Especially the teams that are basically clinched like Oregon. You don't really get anything out of winning the Big Ten, but some people might like it. I don't think it matters. It's the playoffs. And now the Super Bowl, which is the national championship, is all that really matters. So we're going to do that. It's a big portal buzz is rolling as well. I'm going to get right to it with Nevada. Again, we've talked a lot about the playoffs and where we're headed with this thing. And the Michigan game, it has to be deleted. It has to be forgotten. It'll suck forever. It'll sting forever for those seniors, especially that came back for it. But you can't let that loss end your season by having a poor performance in this next playoff game. And we're gonna have a home game in the Horseshoe, which again. You want to talk about magic? I mean, I think it'll be the best atmosphere in Ohio State history, especially if we draw Bama or Tennessee, like an SEC team up here in the cold. There's something that's really exciting about that to me. Where are you at on this championship Saturday? Obviously, it's there's some disappointment that we're not getting a rematch with Oregon, but I'm not scared of Oregon, but I just think that the benefits of us not playing far outweighs us winning the Big Ten, and it's not a loser mentality, but I just think that Again, I've won the Big Ten 4 times, and I've got 4 Big Ten championship rings, and they don't mean anything to me, and they don't really mean anything to our fan base, despite what people think. But if we can run the table on the Natty, then you're a legendary team, and you pick yourself up off the canvas and see what we can do. But what are your thoughts on us not playing today? And do you have any interest in the games today at all?
Well, I do, just because the impact on Ohio State, and make no mistake, we're not exactly sure how this is all going to fall out, but I can go through the games and we can walk through the scenarios of things that we should be looking for, rooting for, and how it could potentially help us. Um, to your initial point, look, we talked about all during the offseason that getting to the 5 seed could be sneaky good in terms of if you could avoid playing in the Big Ten championship game and still, so that you don't have to kind of put yourself out there one more time, then you have 4 games to the championship. Well, Oregon right now has to play the Big Ten championship game. If they win, they get a bye, but then they have 3 more games. So they still have 4 more games to the national championship. So um, it, I think, considering how everything went down with the Michigan game, there's 2 schools of thought. One school of thought is, hey, let's get right back on the horse, try to get that bad taste out of our mouth and jump back in there. I think the loss was so bad, and there was so much that needed to be said with Ryan Day, with Chip Kelly, with the team, that I really think the break's going to do them well and serve to kind of provide as a springboard into the playoff. Because after tonight, look, all that stuff is behind you. There's nothing you can do about losing to Oregon by 1 point earlier in the year, losing by 3 points to Michigan, beating Indiana. None of that stuff matters. It's a new season. It's called the playoffs, and now everybody starts at 0-0, and you go pursue your thing. So let's kind of review what things could happen for Ohio State that would be, in my view, positive. I think if Ohio State can get out of the 8 seed, I think that would be. I mean, look, the 8 seed is way better than being the 9 seed because you're playing a home playoff game. So let's already establish 8 is infinitely better than 9. So we're locked into the 8 seed right now. So the question is, can we move to the 7? Can we move to the 6? And I think there's a number of different things that can happen for to make that. One is Penn State loses to Oregon. So we got to be rooting for Oregon to beat Penn State. It'd be better if it was convincing rather than close, but I don't think it really matters. I think an Oregon win over Penn State definitely moves us over them. So that's a good thing. Second thing I think we got to be rooting for is Texas to beat Georgia. And if Texas beats Georgia, I think Georgia's another team that we could move over. And The reason why I think that that's important is not so much for the first round game, because your first round game is going to be an interesting opponent, but for your second round game, because if you can get to that 6th spot, you can find, you may find yourself, matched up against an an SMU or a BY or a Boise State or so. I mean, there's a lot of interesting matchups that you could get in the second round. So for Ohio State right now, we're looking at they've got to slot it against Tennessee, but I really think our potential opponents could be Alabama. I think our potential opponents could be SMU. If SMU loses to Clemson in a close one, would they move? Would the committee would have to decide between SMU and Alabama? And for all the people that say, well, teams aren't going to be punished for playing in the conference championship game. Well, SMU would is not the number 3 seed right now, would literally fall out of the college football playoff championship with a loss in their championship game. So that would be the ultimate definition of being punished for playing in your conference championship game. So will they do that? Will they not do that? Would Clemson come in? Would they move them over Alabama if they beat SMU? Move Clemson to 11 and move Alabama to 12. Like I said, so many different things, so many different scenarios. That's why I'm interested in the games today, and I think it's going to make for great theater. And then tomorrow morning we'll be up and at them early, because I know they announced this stuff I believe pretty early in the morning, and we'll know where we're playing, we'll know when we're playing, and 2 weeks to get it on. So I'm excited about it. But today's definitely an important day, and definitely one that's worth watching.
See, I think that it's different now because you're potentially scouting, kind of getting familiar with teams that you could see, because again, like in the old days, it was like, if you're at the top of the food chain, you're going to be playing whoever and you'll get a bowl game. But now it's like, you can see a few of these teams. I mean, you can see Texas, you can see Georgia, obviously you can see Penn State, you can see Oregon, you can see a lot of teams with a lot of stuff to prove. And I think that it's going to be fascinating. Like, I'm so excited about the playoffs. I think it'll be interesting to see how coaches manage these rosters and these players, because this is physical football now. And again, that's why, like, if you said, Kirk, you're the athletic director, like, I mean, it's funny when people say, oh, Penn State's not going to get a punishment. What are they right now? 3rd in the country. They lose tonight, they're not going to be 3rd, the final poll tomorrow. I know that. I mean, so by definition, that's getting punished. I think that, for Ohio State, if, say, the unthinkable happened and we would have played it against Oregon tonight and somehow lost again, I don't think that helps us, having a loss to Michigan and 2 losses to Oregon. So, and when we're playing right now, or we're not playing, excuse me, you have no shot of injury, which again, this team kind of had the week off. They had a few workouts at the Woody Hayes, nothing strenuous, nothing killer. Penn State, Oregon is going to be a physical game. It's a 1 versus 3 game. Penn State's got a lot to prove, and they're a physical team, and Oregon's physical. So I think, again, there's a reason why this is kind of like our bye week, and we get to skip out on, playing a really tough game. And let's be realistic. It's a game that'll be very physically taxing, mentally taxing, and like, I'd rather save that for the playoffs, because, there's a chance that a team could get up, win the Big Ten, and, spend a lot of energy, it's a long flight for Oregon. They got to fly back. It's a night game. They're not going to get back to Oregon until, 6 or 7 in the morning. I mean, they'll get off the field at, 10 or 11 tonight, and then they got to get cleaned up and get on the plane. And that's a long trip. Now you get 2 weeks to recover, but it's rest at this time of the year is very critical, and every team is beat up to death. The players feel like trash right now. So again, if I was playing and they said, hey, you can take the week off instead of playing, I'd be like, dude, let's do it and try to get our bodies to feel as good as possible going into the playoffs. Because like I said, losing to Michigan, it's terrible, but it's not the life-ending situation like it used to be. And not winning the Big Ten has never mattered. Never has mattered to our fan base. Again, like, I think about, like, some of these teams, like, when we played Alabama in the national championship, like, we won the Big Ten that year. Trey Sermon ran for 350 yards, and we beat Northwestern. It was amazing, and broke the rushing record from Eddie George. And, like, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about us getting shellacked by Alabama down in Miami. So I think that this playoff will say a lot about Ryan. I think that the storyline of having an SEC school come north and play in the shoe will be fascinating. I just think that when you're the playoff committee and you're putting these matchups together, those were the fantasies that college football fans have been dreaming of for decades. As long as I've been alive, they said we want to see SEC schools come to the north in the cold in December because they just don't do it. But now with the playoffs, they have to do it, which again I think is going to be amazing theater. I mean, I hope it's a blizzard. I hope it's snowing sideways. And, again, we see like when the Miami Dolphins have to go to Green Bay and, the Miami Hurricanes have to go play the Humanitarian Bowl in like Boise, Idaho. Like they don't really do too hot because they're just not ready for it. They're not prepared for it. They don't like it, so it'll be, very interesting to see how they manage that. Again, I like I said, in 2 weeks, the shoe will be on fire because again, like you want to be at that first home playoff game. That'll be a game you'll never forget, especially if it's the Crimson Tide coming to town. Oh my God, the highest rated game of the entire playoffs. I mean, it'll be as high as the championship game because everybody's going to want to see how we do. And like I said, I'm excited for the guys. I'm excited for the seniors because despite, stepping on the landmine and losing to Michigan at home when nobody in the universe thought you're going to lose, you still have the ultimate goal, the ultimate eraser, which is winning the national championship. If you win a national title, like we look at the 14, people talk about the Virginia Tech thing kind of as like a laughing thing and as a teaching moment and a leadership development thing where, oh, we lost to Virginia Tech, but then we rallied the troops and won the Natty. And this could be like one of those moments. And again, for people that say, well, Michigan fans can still say they beat us, like it doesn't matter. If you won a national title, that's the ultimate trump card. And especially since they won one last year, we'd have the more recent one, which is very, very important in terms of the world of bragging rights. So Nevada, the portal is starting to heat up. We've been better than anybody in the country at using the transfer portal. To the point where, it's almost like I don't want to say we've been too good, but like Josh Simmons is a guy that, when we got him 2 years ago, we got him after spring practice, which is crazy. And then he came in and started, did a really nice job. And he's gone. He's going to be a first round pick and, at the absolute worst, a second round pick. But he's gone now. And he's a guy that, when we got him, we probably thought we'd have him for, as a 2-year starter, 3-year starter. Because we got him as a redshirt sophomore last year, and he really blossomed and got so good that he's gone. So that's a big hole at tackle. Obviously, Josh Fryer is moving on. But we've talked a lot about these offensive linemen in the portal. That's where I'd spend, like, God bless David Sanders, and I'm sure he'll be great, whatever. But I want a guy that I know can play college football because I think that's just so important. It's like, to me, it's kind of like an NFL team. Like when the Minnesota Vikings signed Kirk Cousins, they got a quarterback that they knew could play in the NFL, and he put up crazy numbers there with Diggs and Jefferson and those guys. But as opposed to drafting a quarterback, and you see how that works out for a lot of teams, they end up being bombing out. I think that paying a tackle fresh out of high school, a lot of expectations, man, and offensive line is a position where you have to develop. It takes time. Most guys don't start as true freshmen unless you're on a bad team. Jordan Seaton started for Colorado. He was okay. I don't think he was great, but he was okay. But his offensive line he walked into was terrible. So, if you're starting as a freshman, you're either forcing your way in the door, or you're on a bad team. So what are your thoughts as we dig into the portal? Because Ryan Day and Justin Fry are burning the oil right now. If you have the portal open and you've got guys that are digging through it, and you're getting ready for a playoff game, which is something that we've never had to get ready for. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State approaches the portal because, believe it or not, we actually have some kids in the room that they believe in that can play in the future. So when you talk about, we've seen Austin, we've seen Carson. Tigers is a starter, started 12 games, even though needs to be way better. But those are 3 guys you're starting on that can return. Then you've got Josh Padilla. Then you've got Luke Montgomery. Then you've got Ian Moore. Then you've got George Fitzpatrick. Then you got Zen McCauley. You've got a lot of guys that have played or are on the fringes of playing, and so they want to be careful about making sure if they go to the portal kids that these portal kids are Seth McLaughlin or they're Josh Simmons and they're not Victor Cutler. And so I think for Ohio State right now, they're focusing on kids. They're trying to find kids that actually have multiple years left of eligibility, which is that's another interesting thing as well, because if you can get an offensive lineman and have him here for a couple of years like Josh Simmons, then you really do get kind of into a pseudo development situation. And a name I'd look out for is there's a kid at Montana State named Connor Moore, 6'5", 310 from Millbury, Ohio. That's a guy, lower classification, kind of unsung coming out of high school, but that's a guy, sophomore, performed really well at a lower level. Could he do it on the big stage at Ohio State? Well, Ohio State thinks so. And for me, I think that when all the dust settles, the ideal situation would be two tackles that both have multiple years of eligibility remaining. That's what I would look for. That's the S class situation for Ohio State. Do that, and then play with the rest of your guys and do things, because I don't think you need to bring in 3 or 4 guys in the portal, but I think you would do that if they were just absolutely exceptional, can't miss, and the right guys. But I actually, I may be in the minority, but I like some of the guys that we have in our room, and I think some of the guys in our room deserve a chance to play, because the only difference between a lot of these players and these players that went to other schools is these other kids went to other schools and have had a chance to play. Our kids have sat behind some really good players. You look at the guys they're sitting behind, the last few years, multiple early entrants to the NFL, multiple high draft picks, multiple starters in the NFL. So a lot of guys just need their chance to shine. So for Ohio State, I'd be 2, maybe 3, but I think the multiple years of eligibility is really what I'd look for. And I think that could be the hidden gem in this whole thing.
Yeah, I think in an optimal world, to preserve your depth, you'd like to get one surefire guy for sure. Because the problem is, if you take 2 starting tackles, which again, I'm fine with it as long as they're legit, is you're going to clear out the guys from behind them. Like you're going to probably lose Zen, probably lose George Fitzpatrick, probably lose anyone who's not named. I mean, Ian Moore's a true freshman, but, and that was the reason why they didn't go after. I mean, Carter Smith wanted to come here. I mean, we passed on him out of high school, and then he started at Indiana last year, and he started this year, and we passed on him again this past offseason. Now, would he have been better? I mean, if you put Josh Fry at guard and take Tigra out and put Carter at right tackle, maybe. I don't know. But that was something that they decided, because if you take him, you're probably going to lose Tigra, and you're probably going to lose George, and you're probably going to lose maybe 1 or 2 other guys that are younger guys, because I don't know. Like that's the hardest part about the portal is it's not like any of these guys are under contract. Like it's not like when you sign a free agent in the NFL and you can move your first, your number 1 receiver down to number 2. It's like, no, in this world, like your guy could just walk out the door and go get paid elsewhere. So I think at least 2 interior guys. I think George Fitzpatrick can play. I think Ian Moore can play. They both, I think, look physically. They look the part. I think Carson will take a step next year at center. And Tigra's still got 3 years of eligibility left. So I mean, he's got a chance to do something at some point. He's got to decide how good he wants to be. That's the biggest problem. And I think Austin Sarvel will get better. Again, that the first year starting so much harder than the rest of your career, because you don't really know what you're doing. You're trying to figure it out on the fly, so to speak. And it's like anything. Like the more you do it, the more often you do it, the better you are at it. And so I tell people that that we live stream every day, and we have our broadcast that we do every night or almost every night. And we take a couple days off a year. Like we took one off last night because we just not a lot to talk to, and plus it's nice to freshen up for a night for once. But they're like, how do you do it? Is it exhausting? Is it tiring? Do you get nervous? I'm like, no, we do it every day. It's old hat. And that's kind of how I was in my career at Ohio State. It's always exciting, and you're always anxious. You always have anxiety. You always have that doomsday scenario in your head. You're like, God, is this the game where I'm going to give up the sack fumble that gets my quarterback hurt, or they run it in for the touchdown and that's why we lose? Like, that's always something that you always look like through the worst case scenarios in your head. But as I got older, like the games became so much easier. It was never relaxing, because it was always like I was getting ready for war when I went out there. Because I was tuned up when I was going out there. I wasn't out there to take photos for Instagram and give my opponents hugs and kisses on the cheek after we lost to him in the horseshoe. So I but I felt better every year, more confident. You develop your routine. Everyone has a routine when they do stuff like play a game at Ohio State. And when you first start, you don't have routines. You don't even know what you're doing, and you're just trying to kind of hang on for dear life. So I think that these guys will take a step next year. I think the offense it'll be new. I mean, a lot of new faces, but it's the land of opportunity. And I think if you get one tackle and get one interior guy, because then, if you bring in two starting tackles, you're basically saying to every other tackle on the team that you're not good enough to play here and you're going to have to sit. And I think that'll drive guys to the portal. If you bring in one, then you can kind of have like an audition, like a Nevada's conga line of everyone. If you bring in a left tackle, put everyone else, put Zen and George and Ian Moore, put them all at right tackle and have them audition and have one of them win it. So, like what they've done the last couple of years, like Brandon Seth, I thought was excellent. Obviously bringing in Josh Simmons, he turned into a first round pick, also excellent. So I don't know. The portal to me, it's one of the greatest things ever because you can clean your roster up. When you miss on kids, it's good for both parties when some of these kids take off and leave because, if you're like Jaden Ballard, like he's not going to beat out, JJ or Ennis or Tate, or he'll never get significant time here, but he could go play it like Kent State or somewhere and, get on the field a little bit and try to make some hay. And, like I said, it helps you correct wrongs. And for the thing I like the most about it is there's some kids that don't get the offers that they want coming out of high school, and they've got a chip on their shoulder, and then they get out there and they ball out, as freshmen. They play as freshmen, play as sophomores, and they hit the portal, and then all of a sudden they can go get that dream school. So it's not, it's kind of like the recruiting and the camp evaluation stuff. It never stops now. So like if I would not have gotten an Ohio State offer now to end up at like Northwestern and started as like a freshman or redshirt freshman and played well, and then all of a sudden I could go in the portal and Ohio State would want me, like I would do that in a heartbeat, just because these kids, every kid from Ohio dreams of being playing for Ohio. They don't dream of going to Montana. They don't dream of playing at Miami of Ohio or whatever. They dream of being a Buckeye. So if you have a chance to capitalize on it, I did. That's why it drove me crazy that Miami of Ohio's kicker didn't come here and he went to Bama, because we didn't get off the couch and call him. So I don't know. I like the portal. I do have some empathy for the coaching staff. This is the life they chose, but I could imagine mining the portal, meeting with kids, trying to keep them out of the portal on your roster. And then you got to get ready for a playoff game, which is, for Ryan Day, this is do or die, basically. Again, I'm not saying he's going to get fired, but, he can't go out there and lay an egg versus Tennessee or versus Bama or whatever, because, we're going to be the higher seed and we're going to be favored against whoever we go against. And, to have back-to-back home losses would be devastating for his prospects going forward. I don't want to be morbid, but Ryan's got to get these guys ready to go. And again, if I'm the captain of this team, if I'm Jack Sawyer and some of these guys, like Michigan's gone, doesn't matter. The game, you can never play that game again. Let's go change the narrative of this team. Because as of now, this team's an underachieving team that, they haven't done anything. And again, but they have a chance to do the biggest thing that you could ever do, which is win the national title. If you win that thing, it erases all the wrongs. This team will be legendary if they pull it off, and they can. Like, they're the second or third highest favorite to win this behind Oregon. It's like Oregon, Texas, and I said Texas could easily lose tonight, and then we might be the second highest favorite in this entire tournament. We're going to be a 6 or 7 seed, which is crazy. So I don't know, but I like us getting a little bit of rest tonight. Nevada starting some super chats. Any thoughts on anything that I said about the portal? And the selection show's at noon tomorrow, so we'll probably do a live show at noon, so we can just knock that thing out tomorrow and react to it. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, yeah, I think the portal's going to be good because I think, for Ohio State, I think they've attracted intelligently. They've tried to avoid going after guys that were just about the bag. They've filled key positions. I think your point about one interior lineman and one tackle, smart. I think it's smart. I think it's smart. I definitely think it'll be 2 guys. I'd love it to be 2 sophomores if you could get it. A lot of these guys in the portal are big names, but they're guys that have gone places and haven't done anything. So what you're buying, do you really want to buy the name? These are guys that Peyton Kirkland or whatever the guy's. I remember everybody would have died if we got Peyton Kirkland. That was going to be the greatest lineman. And he was at Texas, and then he went somewhere else, and now he's in the portal. And I'm like, is that guy really what you want? I mean, to me, no. I mean, I'd rather give me the Ohio kid from Montana State or something like that if he can play, and let's go get it on. But I think Ohio State, they know what they got to do. Ryan Day has given a mandate to Justin Frye to get more active in the portal, so they're going to be active. There's absolutely no question about that. And people can say, well, I'll wait and see. 100% understood. I think we'll all wait and see, but that is the mandate. They're definitely going to bring in at least a couple of starters, and it's going to be fun. And today, I love days like this where there's no stress. We can't lose. We can't get hurt. And all we can do is improve our position or set up some sort of iconic match. I mean, Ohio State, Alabama, forget the winning and losing and the betting spread and everything else like that. Just the theater of that whole thing would be absolutely amazing. The Caleb Downs playing against his old team, Seth McLaughlin not playing, but there, Julian saying, I mean, there's just so many different, great iterations of this. And you're absolutely right. This is a game that people have literally been calling for decades. I mean, I have heard more comments about this. If only we get these teams up. Well, you know what, guys? It's happening, and we all get to be part of it. And I'm all for it. So as much as wasn't a big fan of the 12-team playoff, still have reservations about the degradation to the regular season. Still think the playoff format is with the automatic seeding and things is flawed. But hey, we're in it. We're in it to win it, and I'm excited about it.
Well, I just like it because, I mean, Ohio State, unless they screw the pooch, they'll be in it for basically ever. I mean, there's not going to be, unless something goes haywire, like we're not going to lose more than 2 games very often. So, I think that we have, a shot where, this is like something where you go back in time and you look at some of the best teams that, I was on, and you wish you would have had a shot at a playoff. But like I said, in the old days, it was like you had to be in the top 2. And other than that, you're going to a bowl game that nobody cared about. So I think that it's a real opportunity to see who the real champion is. It's not because like if you get in, it all shakes out, then you get to see the real champion. This isn't we played a soft schedule and we snuck into the BCS number 1 or 2, or we avoided people or whatever. Like I love it because I think that you'll have a true champion. And there's been years where you've had really good teams, and then I go back to 04, which again, and this is so funny to say out loud, the fact that Auburn was undefeated. They were like 14-0, and they did not get into the national championship game. Which you think about, like the fact that an undefeated, that's how little people thought of the SEC. Like the SEC before Florida beat us in 06, like the SEC was completely irrelevant. Like nobody cared about the SEC. They weren't this supernova. But then once they got into bed with ESPN and they smashed us, like they became the superpower. But like in 04, like when we were playing, like they weren't like Auburn wasn't even in consideration. They gave it to Oklahoma and SC, and SC beat Oklahoma like 55-10 or something. It was just an absolute monster. It was Mike Williams and Reggie and all those guys. It was a monstrous beatdown. But I don't know. I think that this tournament's going to be just fascinating because it's going to be a war of attrition. It's going to be who can be the healthiest. It's going to be a lot of luck. As much as I want to say football is a game of skill, like like in college football, like you don't have free agency in the middle of the season. You obviously have the portal, but you look at like the Detroit Lions, like Aiden Hutchinson breaks his leg and they can go trade for Zadarius Smith, who's a really good pass rusher, and he's not as good as Aiden Hutchinson, but at least he can fill that thing in. In college, man, if you lose a key player, everything kind of goes down the tubes. It's tough to replace. I mean, you can have depth, and it's like I always say, depth is great until it has to play. And you got to try to gin it up the best you can, but it'll just be fascinating to see who's the last man standing. And is it end up being truly the best team, or a team that was projected to go, or did somebody have an issue? Because like I said, Ohio State, they've had some adversity, and like that 14 season was probably the best of all time, where they lost 2 starting quarterbacks and still won the national title. So it'll be exciting to see how this thing goes down, because like I said, I can't wait. And again, I was Obviously, before the Michigan game, we were the projected number one seed in the title, and we were favored to go against Oregon. Like we were 3-point favorites going into the Oregon game before we lost to Michigan. So like I was like, man, we're probably not going to get to see a home playoff game, and I don't know if we'll ever see one because we're probably going to be so good it'll never happen. But we're going to get one year one, and it's going to be incredible. And I just hope that, for the love of God, they don't put it at noon. I hope it's the night game and it's freezing cold, and I think it'll just be completely awesome to see. All right, we got some super chats piling up. Appreciate you guys kicking in with us on Saturday. A little bit earlier, but again, I don't want to go against the Georgia-Texas game. I don't want to go against the Big Ten title game. I know you guys want to watch those, so figured knock this thing out. Rave YouTube, thank you for the 10. I hope you're good, my friend. Forget SEC teams coming to the shoe in cold weather. It's not like our boys are used to playing well in cold weather. Do we really think the cold weather is an advantage for OSU? Well, I think it is, because these guys are up here in it, and they got to practice in it. And, if you're Alabama, you can't go outside. And it gets cold in Alabama, but it doesn't get it's not as cold as Ohio. But you got to get used to it. And when you live in Ohio, it's freezing out today, and you get used to it. You get thick blood and figure it out. I mean, I don't know. I think our team is fine in the cold weather. Again, it wasn't that cold in any of the games this year. There wasn't any snow. But I don't know. I think it's an advantage for northern teams, and I think it's like that in the NFL. I think it's like that in college. I've always thought that, but again, I could be wrong. Nevada, and I've watched, like I said, go look at with the Miami. I think Miami played Notre Dame. This might have been the last 7 or 8 years, and they played in Boise, Idaho, in the humanitarian. They lost by 50 points. I mean, it was snowy and cold, and that's probably about right. In Nevada, do you think that Ohio State has a cold weather advantage?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, you can debate how big the advantage is or whatever, but it's absolutely a thing for teams that come down to the South. Like you said, you see it in the NFL. You've seen it, wild examples in college. But I mean, look, I just went and saw the Dolphins played at the Packers on Thanksgiving night, and to his stats, when the temperature is below 40 degrees compared to when it's above 40 degrees, is like night and day. And the Packers they revel in that advantage, and it wasn't like it was like a blizzard; it was just cold. And let me tell you what, in late December in Columbus, it's going to be cold. So, do I think it's going to be an advantage? Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. It'll be an advantage, and no excuses. Got to win that game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be. I think it's an advantage just because it's. There's a reason why there's southern teams that like to come up here after September. It's because of this weather. Harris Chinasamy, thanks for the deuce. Appreciate you. Has Charles Bentley been helping out at the WAC recently? Yeah, he was there yesterday. We needed him in August, but he, they got him in there, and I'm sure that he's going to start working with some of these interior guys to get those guys tuned up a little bit. Again, he's the best offensive line trainer. I mean, him and Duke Manyweather are the two best that there is, and Charles kind of started that entire industry of training offensive linemen, and he knows how to get guys on diets. He knows how to get guys physically right. He's a great teacher, and he's made a lot of guys a lot of money in the NFL. So. I think that, between some of the technical stuff and the lifestyle stuff that he can help with, on top of the fact that he's just, he just knows his stuff. I mean, he's devoted his entire life to improving the mechanics of offensive line play. And he's a Buckeye, through and through. He won the Remington, was an All-American, was a second-round pick, and he was the highest paid center in the NFL. He just had a tragic injury that ended his career. But something that I think that if I ran the show, if I was Ryan Day, I'd put him on a retainer. And I'd say, okay, you're going to come down and work out with our guys. Because you could do basically any of this now. Before, you really couldn't do that. But now, with the way that there's an expanded coaching staff, and I mean, you can do basically anything. And all the coaches that are off the field can coach now. Put him on a retainer. And, I would want him down here for recruiting weekends. Because I think that LaCharles has a really powerful message about how he lost football early. He had his big second contract, and I believe he sued the Browns too, because there was a big group of guys like Joe Juravicius and LaCharles, and I think Kellen was. They all got a really bad staph infection, MRSA, from the Browns facility, and it ended Juravicius's career. It definitely had to, like LaCharles' knee was mangled, but then he got that staph infection. He almost died. So there was a big lawsuit there. I don't know if that ever saw the light of day, but it was not pretty. So I think he got a settlement there. But he's made a good living just developing offensive linemen in the NFL. So I think that it's he'd be a compelling person to put across from mom, dad, recruit. Hey, this is life after football. We're going to nurture your kid. We're going to teach him how to be a pro. Yeah, get him ready for the NFL, like the whole 9 yards. Because LaCharles, I mean, he's a wicked smart dude, man. He went to St. Ignatius, and like I said, he made an industry. I always have respect for guys that create an industry out of something that they're passionate about that didn't really exist. I mean, there was no such thing as offensive line training. There's always training sessions and training groups and training facilities, and there's a lot of those. They're all over the place in Ohio, Columbus, Arizona, Miami. I mean, you guys see them all over the place. There was never one that was exclusive just for offensive linemen. That never existed until Charles created it. And he, Taylor Decker made his career, Pat Elfline, a lot of those guys, they went to LaCharles and they lived in Arizona. They bought houses in Arizona to literally train with them in the off season, and it prolonged their careers. And, I mean, they've incredible success. So I'm happy for LaCharles. This should have happened, I mean, it could have maybe happened earlier in some sort of facet, but it was a lot trickier before they removed the unlimited coach, because now you can have unlimited coaches. So before that, it was tougher because you couldn't really have a consultant come in. I mean, you probably could have, because there were teams that were doing it, but it was kind of a little sketchy. I mean, not what they're doing sketchy, but it's just like now you can officially make him a coach. And he could be part-time or whatever, and he can come in and work. But I think that was some of the hang up, is that you can't just hire like a bunch of, skill trainers, and because there's NCAA rules where it's like, well, does this count as coaching? Does this count as, like you're bending the rules in the summer, in the spring? Like again, there's a lot of red tape, but now there's no red tape. It's all cut out. So, like I said, LaCharles has done a lot of work with Oregon. He's done a lot of work with Arizona State. Michigan wanted Sean Moore wanted him to come work up there, and I mean, I think it's going to be good for us because he's got a lot of kids trust him, and again, if I was some high school kid trying to get better at offensive line play, like I'd go work out with LaCharles and learn the game, and he's done that with some really, really good players. Nevada, your thoughts? LaCharles is back in the WAC, helping out a little bit. How does that help the team out?
Well, look, let's be real about this. This was something that LaCharles had offered to Ohio State 6 months ago, 9 months ago. Can't remember exact timing, and Ohio State turned him down. And I think what this indicates is what we were talking about earlier. That Justin Frye's got a mandate, and I think part of that mandate is also including going to outside people for help when they offer it. And I think for LaCharles being in there, there's nothing but benefit. There's no downside to doing it. And but I always take a step back and say, what does this? How did this come to be? I don't think it's a coincidence that it's the same week that Justin gets the mandate to up the numbers. That Justin gets the mandate to increase activity in the portal. That LaCharles is all of a sudden in the room. I think it's all part of the same conversation that Justin Frye had with Ryan Day.
Well, and plus, like our interior guys didn't play well versus Michigan. They looked weak, and they weren't as powerful as you needed to be. And like, LaCharles, like, what would you do? Like, how would you help our guys play with more power and be better and better hand placement? And like Brian Baldinger did a breakdown of Mason Graham versus our guys, and our guys' hand placement is terrible. I mean, it's hard for me to watch. And again, I'm not trying to be the old head. I don't want to be the offensive line coach. I love what my life is right now, but our guys have got to learn how to use their hands, because it's like, it'd be like being like a hockey goalie and you've got your arms behind your back and you're giving up goals left and right. I mean, you'd be like, why don't you use your glove and your blocker? Why don't you use those and try to stop the puck? Like it's maddening because our guys just don't. They let guys put their hands in their chest every play. It drives me crazy, and they're scared to refit, because you got to refit the hands. And a refit is when someone gets their hands inside. Because again, I would miss with my hands sometimes. Now my hands were a million times better than these guys, and that was like my mechanism that made me an All-American is my hands were really good. Worked really hard. Obviously, I was really strong. Because again, if you look at me physically, I don't look like a first-team All-American tackle. If you see me next to Paris and Dewan and Orlando Pace, like I look like a little midget next to those guys. But my technique was good, especially my hands. My hands were better than my feet. And our guys just don't. Like, I don't know what they do in individual, but they've got to learn how to get people's hands off. Because if you get a defensive lineman's hands off of you, if they can't grab you, they have no chance of beating you, especially in the running game. Oh my God. I mean, if you get a guy's hands off, they're basically helpless. And I was really good at that. That was like my thing. Like I played that old Michigan clip where I got my hands in on Pat Massey and dumped him on his head. Like that was strictly because of if Pat has his hands in on me, you gotta remember Pat Massey, you guys probably don't remember, he's 6'8". I'm 6'4", so he outreaches me easily, unless my hands are a bit quicker. My hands were quicker. I got inside on him and I dumped him on his head. So, again, there's a lot of stuff LaCharles can help out with. And Justin, Justin was a center in college. He played center in Indiana, and it's like two centers kind of talking. And I think that there's and again, the thing about offensive line play and offensive line coaching is every coach has different technical preferences on how to do things. Like when I was bouncing around the NFL and I was on 5 teams in 3 years, like every coach had a different way that he wanted stuff done. And it can drive you crazy sometimes because you go from program to program like I did. And it's like, I just got used to doing it how Harry Heaton wants it. Now Mike Mazer wants something different and George Yarno wants something different. And it's all way different from what I did at Ohio State. So I think that sometimes when guys aren't doing great technically, like Tegra, maybe for whatever reason, Tegra isn't buying what Justin Fry is selling or what Tim Drebno is selling or Ryan Day or whatever, because he keeps putting the same stuff on film. So maybe LaCharles can reach him. I don't know. I mean, again, you gotta figure out a way for these guys to play stronger. And again, some of these guys, I just don't think that they're very interested in being in the weight room, which is disturbing because your offensive linemen have got to be like weight room junkies. Like they have to be guys that are in there early. They like to get extra work in because it's a position where strength is just so paramount to your performance. It's not like receiver. Like your receiver, you could have JJ Smith or you could have like Deshaun Jackson, who's 165 pounds. And I don't know if he ever touched a weight in his life. And they can both be really good. In the league, you have to have a certain level of functional strength. Doesn't mean you have to bench 500 pounds. It just means you have to have functional strength. And some of our guys just don't have enough functional strength, in my opinion. But LaCharles can change that. Bernie, thanks for the 5. Does playing in the cold truly help us as much as it would have years ago? So many of our recruits are from the South and the West. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, they live up there. Just anytime you can get acclimated to something, and anybody who now lives up in the North, as opposed to down in the South, whether no matter where you're from, you get used to it, and it bothers you less. Now, is that 2% less, 5% less, 50% less, 1% less, whatever it is? It's less. So no, I think it's still a big advantage. And we've used the example of the NFL teams all the time. Look, those guys are from all over the country. They don't, they're not like born and raised necessarily in where they're playing, but they acclimate to where they are. So, I mean, how many people that play on the Green Bay Packers grew up in Wisconsin? Like 2. But, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was from California and he became the greatest cold game quarterback of all time. So I just think it's just about, playing in it, kind of embracing it and using it to your advantage. And I think I think it's going to be a huge advantage. The colder the better, as far as I'm concerned. Especially if we get a team like Alabama.
Yeah, wherever you play at, whatever the climate is, it's an advantage for the home team. And the way I'll explain this is super simple. So in 2008, I was on the Chicago Bears, got drafted by the Bears. Had training camp in Chicago at Olivet Nazarene, which is in Bourbonnais, Illinois. And the camp was pretty temperate. It was like 80, 85 degrees, 82 degrees. So it wasn't like death. Made the team. They tried to do some trickeration to sneak me through on the roster. And they want to sign an older guy named Fred Miller who'd been in the league for like 15 years. And they tried to sneak me through waivers. And the Miami Dolphins claimed me. And for those of you that don't understand what the waiver system is, it's kind of cruel, but it is one of the novelties of being a football player in the National Football League and in baseball is that a team can claim you. So I always tell people, be like, look, if you work at, you know, Huntington Bank or Chase Bank, or you work at Nationwide Insurance or something, and a team's like, hey, we have to do this procedural move. Nothing will change. You'll still make your same salary, but we have to, quote unquote, like fire you for a day, but we're going to bring you back, in 2 days, and nothing will change. You'll still make your same check, whatever. You'd be like, okay. And then all of a sudden some like company in, Missoula, Montana claims you, and they say, hey, you have to move here today. And you're like, oh, I don't want to move. I got my house, my wife, my kids are in school, and I don't want to do any of that. I want to stay here. And it's like, nope. If you want to stay in your industry, you have to move immediately. Like tonight, you have to get on a plane and go be a banker out here. Like that's what the NFL is like. So I knew a little bit about it. I didn't have any idea what kind of ride I was in for. But the moral of the story is so I show up to Miami, and they were terrible. Like the year before, they were 1-15, and they took Jake Long, number 1 overall, which was Jake's a really good player, Michigan guy. Should have taken Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan ended up being, almost a Hall of Fame level type quarterback, MVP of the NFL. But my first practice down there was, we had a walkthrough on Friday, which they actually had a big bubble, which is like a big indoor dome that we practiced in. But my first real practice was on a Wednesday. And it was 100 degrees outside. And again, I'm not trying to be a baby, and you guys will probably say I'm a baby. I was like, I literally might die out here because it was so hot. And the biggest thing is that my body was not used to that because, I was training in the north, and we had training camp in the north where it was 83 degrees. And all of a sudden you go up to, and the practices were brutal because we sucked. We lost to the Arizona Cardinals by like 45 points. And it was actually the year they went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers. But I got out there, man, and it was like hell on earth. It was so hot. And that was something that we used to talk about, like some of us big guys. And I had a really good friend named Tony Pachos, who was an All-American at Illinois and played for the 49ers. I was with him out there, but he was a Baltimore Raven, and he signed a big free agent deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's like, it was the dumbest thing I ever did. And they paid him, $40 million, whatever. And again, it's awesome to make the money. But he's like, dude, like he was in Jacksonville for like 2 or 3 years, had a bunch of injuries, didn't really pan out. And he's like, it took years off my life. It was so hot. It was so miserable. So again, like the moral of the story is like, if it's really hot or really cold, it does have an effect on football teams. Now, if it's a cold team, if it's the Steelers playing the Browns, there's obviously no effect because they're the same weather. But if it's the Dolphins coming to Green Bay, like it's palpable. They're not used to dealing with it. They don't have to wear, long sleeve, heat gear stuff in Miami ever. So, they make a big deal. They had to pack 65,000 pounds of stuff to come up there, and hand warmers and big coats. And, like when you're the Green Bay Packers, I mean, that's just another day at the office for you. The Chicago Bears, where it's freezing cold every day. Like, so it is a thing, and again, when you get to those Southern schools like Alabama, and, a lot of their kids are from the South, they're from Florida, they're from Alabama, they're from Metro Atlanta, they're from Texas. A lot of them have never seen snow. They've never been in the cold before. So, I mean, they got to go figure out how much they like football when they're out there and it's 20 degrees and snowing, which is, I hope it's just absolutely frigid during the game. That'd be amazing, because I think that those kids will be miserable, and I think it's a huge edge for us. But again, this is just my opinion. Like I played it, and it's like if Ohio State has to go play the Miami Hurricanes in the first weekend of September in Miami, that's an edge for Miami. Like it gets hot in Ohio, and trust me, we get on that turf and it's 100 degrees on that turf, but it's not Miami hot. It's not South Florida, because South Florida is a cooker, and a lot of you guys live down there, and I grew up in Naples, and it's not fun. So I think it's a big advantage. Nevada, you have anything to add to that? And again, I think that when you watch those teams come up to Green Bay, it always shows it. Or when you see these teams go to Buffalo and there's 17 feet of snow on the ground, people say that weather's not an advantage. Well, I think it is. It sure shows up when those teams get to go play in their stadium and their elements. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, and you make an excellent point. It goes both ways. I mean, extreme hot or extreme cold, works the advantage of the team that's more used to being in it. And I mean, will it be determinative of the game? No, but I mean, the Miami, like I said, I was at the Packers game on Thanksgiving night, and the next day in the paper, you saw a bunch of the Dolphins players going. A bunch of our guys just quit because it was just too cold, and we're just soft. I mean, literally, they're saying that, and these are NFL players. So, do I think it could affect college kids? 100%. I think it can affect college kids. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and NFL players like like the Miami Dolphins aren't just made up of kids from South Florida. They're made up from guys from all over the country. But I mean, like when you get to like these big colleges, you get to Bama and stuff like they're very very based in the South. So like I said, a lot of those kids are gonna get up here, man. They're like, I can't wait to get home because this is freezing cold, and I think it'll be good for us. All right, Nevada. Any final thoughts? We can wrap this thing up.
No, just what the Cavaliers are playing now. Evan Mobley had 23 points in the first quarter, including going 5 for 5 from three. So he's pretty good. So we got the Cavaliers going today. We got lots of championship games going today. So just and a UFC card tonight. So a big smorgasbord of sports activity, and we'll be at it first thing in tomorrow morning when they do the announcement of the college football playoffs. So we'll know what time and when we're playing, and we can all start making plans. So it starts to get serious now. 2-week run up to the playoff. So let's go.
We'll have a bowl reaction show right at noon. So we'll go for an hour and get your reaction. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. All right, let's wrap this thing up. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for kicking it with us on your Saturday. I figured that you guys would appreciate this so that we wouldn't be going on in the fourth quarter of the SEC championship, because that's going to probably be a great game. So again, I hope you guys are having a great Saturday. I appreciate you guys all for being a part of a record-breaking month for Buckeye Scoop. It was an absolutely incredible stretch that we've been on. And I just appreciate you guys so very much. I hope you guys are having a great weekend. You guys are still win the national title, so cheer up. Like, there's nothing to be sad about. And we got a chance to make it crazy around here. So if you guys want to help us in a huge way, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and also Spotify. It's the easiest thing you can do. It's completely free. And it's something that really helps us out. We've signed up a ton of new Pay It Forward people. Thank all of you for the incredible super chats. It's an incredible month. And to all you Pay It Forward members that are new to BuckeyeScoop.com, if you have any questions, send me an email at buckeyescoop@gmail.com. Again, Pay It Forward is a program that we use to give back for our military members, our police officers, the people who take care of us. We try to take care of them. And you guys all do that so well. So again, I appreciate you guys. This little token that we can give you guys to get concierge access to BuckeyeScoop.com, which is the #1 Ohio State website and message board, and it's been absolutely cooking recently with great new inside information. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you guys at noon tomorrow, nice and early, before we get into the NFL slate. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.